Okay, so this is going to be module two, and again, just as you see before, I've done all the typing for us. Here's what it looks like before. Here's let's see, this is what it's supposed to look like after. Um, so what we've got here is we've got looks like some sort of bi-weekly payroll sheet. So we've got Olivia's art supply salary report. These are her employees. Um, and this is going to do some stuff like figuring out taxes and those kinds of things. So we've got these employees. We know how many dependents they have, what their hours worked, and what their gross pay is. I'm sorry, what their hourly pay is. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out a few things about this spreadsheet. We're going to figure out things like gross pay, which is just simply how much money they make before taxes and anything else. What their federal tax is, what their state tax is, what their tax percentage is, 28%, 25%, something like that. And then the net pay, which is how much money they take home. And we're going to look at a few statistical things, like what the totals are of some things, what the highest and the lowest are, and what the average is of this. Now, the textbook, shows you some of the formulas, and I've put the formulas here on this spreadsheet just to make things a little bit easier. Now, we all kind of worry about the practical test. I'm going to give you the formulas, and they're going to look something similar to this. Don't worry about this constant yet. We'll deal with that maybe in the next video. But so here are the formulas that we're going to use for each of these things. So let's just get started. First thing we'll work on is gross pay. So gross pay is nothing more than how much money the person earned before we deal with taxes or kids or anything like that. Just how much money they earn. So it's a simple formula. It's going to be hourly rate, so how much money they make an hour, times how many hours they worked. And like I said, this is bi-weekly, so it's going to, they get paid looks like once every 2 weeks. So we'll start the formula off easy, and it says our gross pay, column E, is hours worked times hourly rate. So we're just going to start this formula, say equal. Now we don't have a multiplication like x. I mean, if you're writing this formula, you would write 2 times 3, 2x3, which gives you 6. We don't have that in on our keyboard. As far as multiplication, we have the letter x, but we don't have the multiplication thing. So what we use for multiplication is the asterisk. So it's shift 8 will give you the asterisk. So we're going to say hours worked. So we're going to click on this that gives us our cell reference, asterisk, hourly rate. How much money they get paid per hour. And it looks like this person brought home $1,268 and some change. And then I can click and drag it all the way down. And now we have it for all of our employees. Now our federal tax is going to be a little more wonky. And it's just this crazy formula. 0.22 times gross pay minus dependents times 24.32, close parentheses. I don't know what this formula means. We're just going to accept it and move on. All right, just accept it. Now, the one thing to see is that one of the functions of this formula is gross pay. Well, gross pay is a formula that we just did. So this is actually going to have a formula inside of a formula. So we're going to use this gross pay to go on with our federal tax. So let's just start our formula equals, like we normally would, 0.22 times, so we got to do the asterisk again, parentheses, let's see, gross pay, this, minus dependents, asterisk, 24.32. I don't know what these numbers mean, and it don't really matter. We're just going to accept it and move on. So you see my formula is 0.22 times parentheses, and what this is all in parentheses, gross pay, which is in this formula is going to be E5 right here, minus B5, which is our dependents, times 24.32. So the way this formula will work we're going to kind of work backwards, because the first thing we got to do is our parentheses. And inside the parentheses, the first thing we're going to do is our multiplication. So the first thing we're going to do is take our dependents times 24.32, and then we're going to subtract that from our gross pay, and then we're going to multiply that times 0.22. Let's just accept it and move on. So 268 and like 46 cents looks like it's going to be our what our taxes are. All right, state tax is going to be a little bit similar. It's just state tax is 0.04 times gross pay. So that's a pretty easy formula. Equals 0.04 asterisk gross pay. E5. $50. And moving on. Now this next one, our tax percentage, column H, is going to be Fed tax plus state tax divided by gross pay. So we're going to add our Fed and our state together, and then we're going to divide that by our gross pay, and that's going to give us like a decimal or a percentage. So, and we have to write this in a specific way. Notice I have the Fed tax plus state tax in parentheses, because that has to be added together before we divide that total by gross pay. So equals parentheses Fed tax plus state tax, close parentheses, divide. Now our division, we don't have a division, you know, the bar with a dot above and dot below. That doesn't exist on your keyboard. So what we use for division is the /, which is the slash that's underneath the question mark on your keyboard. So slash, so that gives us our division, gross pay. So this gives us that. So this should give us our tax percentage, and like I said, it is a decimal, which is what a percentage is. We'll change it to a percentage here in a minute. And our net pay is just how much money we bring home. So our net pay is gross pay minus Fed tax plus state tax. And this formula can be written a few ways. It's got Fed tax, gross pay minus Fed tax plus state tax. So you add the Fed tax and the state tax together and subtract that from the gross pay. I can do this without parentheses if I wanted to. I can say gross pay minus Fed tax minus state tax. That would work also. So let's just take this apart. So we're going to say equals gross pay minus parentheses Fed tax plus state tax, close parentheses. And that's how much money we bring home. So we made $1,268. We brought home $949. So there's our formulas to make this work. All right. A couple of other things. We'll just look at the after on this. A couple of other things. We want some totals. Now we got like here's our totals for like all of the hours worked. Here's our the total hourly rate doesn't make a lot of sense because it all that depends on how many people are working and what how much money they're making an hour. Because so the total hourly rate is kind of a bogus number. But we'll go on with this. Gross pay, how much everybody brought home in those 2 weeks, how much the Fed tax were in those 2 weeks, how much the state tax were in those weeks, with the tax percentage doesn't make a lot of sense, so we probably won't include that one. And then the net pay is like how much money everybody brought home. Okay, so let's do some of this stuff. So we'll go back to module 2 before, and I'm just going to start some dependents. So equals, and again, this is just, you can do this formula however you want to, but I'm going to do it with the sum. Equals, so I'm going to click on sum, make sure that my ranges are right, enter, so I know the number of kids, boom, 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 boom. Now, like I said, I can get rid of some stuff, like if some of it doesn't make a lot of sense, like my hourly pay rate, that doesn't make a lot of sense because that only works when like everybody's working and not everybody's working all those hours, so that doesn't make a lot of sense. So I can get rid of that one. And then my tax percentage doesn't make a lot of sense. I can get rid of that one. All I did was click on the cell and delete them. All right. So, but I am interested in some of these other things, like the highest, the lowest, and average. So the highest is a statistical function, which is max. The lowest is a statistical function, which is lowest, which is min, and then we got the average, which is just the average. And so again, we're going to have to be careful on what we select. So I'm going to start my formula again. So our highest is going to be max. So I'm going to click this down arrow and see if I see a max, and there it is. So that's a function that I want to use. Now, again, see this B14? That's the B14, which is a total. I don't want to include that because that will jack up this highest. I'm interested in the highest number should be 3 because Teresa Khan, she has 3 children. So that's what the highest should be. But if I left it this way, it's going to show 11 because of this 11 here. So I need to make sure that it does not include that, B5 through B13. Our lowest is going to be min, which should be 0. So again, now my formula is going to be, when I click on this again, so I'm going to start my function again. We'll click this down arrow, and I don't see min. I don't see my minimum. So what I'm going to do is click on more functions. That's going to open up this window. And then what I'm interested in, I know it's going to be min, so I'm just going to click the M to get me down there, and then I'm just going to go find it. Min, right there. So I click on that, I say OK. Now it includes it in the function. But notice that it says min B15. Well, it only included this one because of the way that I wrote the formula above it. So again, I got to select what I want. So just be sure that you select what you want before you move on. B5 through B13. So that's right. And now I'm going to do my average. And again, it's going to mess up too. So I'm going to say equals. I'm going to go up here, and I should see average. I do. And then now it says B15 to B16. So again, don't trust this, what it says that it wants it to be. You've got to make sure that you're selecting the right stuff. So the average dependent is 1.2. All right. So now that I have these 3 formulas done, actually this shows you that I can do 3 formulas at once and drag these things across. And now I've got the formulas for everything. My average hours worked per that week was 68. My average hourly pay was $19.82. My average gross pay was $13.87. So this is just a way of like taking these numbers, but you've got to be careful about selecting. You want to make sure that you're selecting the right stuff. All right. Another thing that I want to introduce you to is like these. See these things that are kind of color coded. What I've done, this is what they wanted us to do in this thing. They wanted us to create a way of flagging anybody who worked more than 70 hours. So if somebody works more than 70 hours, we want to flag them somebody. We want to be able to see who they are and what's going on. So if I wanted to flag some folks that were working more than 70 hours, I have to know which field is going to be important to me. So it's going to be the hours worked field. So that's what I'm most interested in. So I'm just going to select this for all of my users. So these are the cells that I'm going to want to use my formatting on. And then there's this little button called conditional formatting. We'll click on this, and then I'm going to create a new rule. And that's going to open up this box, and I'm just going to say format, format cells based on their values, format cells that contain. This is what I'm interested in, format cells that contain. So I'm going to format cells that contain a cell value greater than or equal to 70. So of this range, I'm going to do some conditional formatting on cells that have a cell value greater than or equal to 70. So if any of these cells are greater than or equal to 70, it will apply that formatting to them. So now I just go through and say how I want this stuff formatted. And I'm going to say that I want the font to be, I'll just leave it at black, and I'll make the fill, I'll just make it, well, it's purple, so I'll just choose like a purplish kind of color, like this. And I'll say OK, and so it kind of gives you a preview of what it's going to look like, and then I'll say OK, and it goes through, and 80 is greater than 70, 72 is greater than 70, all of these values are greater than 70. So if it's not, it doesn't get a conditional formatting. All right, so another thing that I want to pay attention to. This is a bi-weekly payroll spreadsheet. So in 2 weeks, I'm going to have to do this again. So let's just suppose that in 2 weeks, I need to run this report again. Everybody's going to be making the same amount of money per hour. There's no kids being born. Everything's going to be the same in 2 weeks that they are today, except for one thing, and that is the amount of hours that they worked. Now, I have this spreadsheet. It's working fine, but I want to be able to use it again. I don't want to have to go through and recreate this thing. So what I can do is I can just get rid of the things that will change. So I'm just going to get rid of the hours worked, because that's what's going to change in a couple of weeks. And I just selected those and deleted them. And now I could, if I wanted to, save this file just like this. And notice there's a few errors that pop in. This div whack 0. What that means is we're trying to divide by 0. And the reason for that is you remember that this is our tax percentage, and our tax percentage was our gross pay is at the bottom of our division formula, and you cannot divide by 0. And you see our gross pay is 0 because we got rid of all the hours worked. All right, so I can save this file now as a template. And in 2 weeks now, when we get ready to do this again, all I have to do is go through here and say that Joanne Bennett, she worked 45.98 hours. And watch what happens to the rest of this of the information on her as I do this. Boom. It goes ahead and fills out the rest of this information. Michael Fred, he worked 71.25 hours. Comes back with a conditional formatting because he worked more than 70 hours, but it finishes the rest of this stuff out. So I can save these things as a template, and that way I don't have to recreate the whole thing. Now I'm going to get this thing back to where it was before I got rid of this stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn some things into money. So like this hourly rate like hourly pay, gross pay, Fed tax, state tax, net pay. All of these things are money. So I'm just going to select these. Yeah, I'm going to select it all the way down here. And then I'm also going to hold down on my control key and select my net pay just because it's money too. And I'm just going to turn this stuff into money. So I'm going to take this type to accounting. And you'll see that it did a few things. It put the dollar sign in. It rounded it to 2 decimal places because that's why we do money. I'm going to take my tax percentage and I'm going to select those cells and I'm going to turn those into a percent. Now, this percentage, you see it's at a flat 25%. But what I can also do is I can format these cells. So I'm going to click on format these cells, and you see right now it's percentage and I have 0 decimal places, but let's suppose I want to have a couple of decimal places. So what I did was I just increased the decimal places to 2 and said OK, and now it gives me 2 decimal places behind here. Another thing I want to look at is this module 2 after. You see how like hours worked, hourly pay rate, Fed tax. See how these cells are kind of like they do a word wrap? And we can make that happen. Go here. I'm just going to select these cells like this. And then there's a button here that says word wrap. And then I can center it. I'll make dependents a little bigger. Just so it's all one word. And you can see right now, and if I want to shrink something down, I have to be careful. Ooh, I want to show you this. This is good. See what I just did? See, this is a date. These are date fields. And if I make this field like too small, see how these pound signs start popping in here? There are certain fields, like where's numbers or dates or something like that. If it can't show you the whole field, it shows you nothing. So that's why all these pound signs are here, just to let you know that there's something going on here. This field size is too small to show you any of it, so it shows you none of it. To fix that, you can just drag this thing out a little bit till you get the size, or you can go up here and double click it, and it will automatically make it big enough so you can see all of the fields. And I've already showed you how to do the the Mergent Center, which would give you that. So that is Module 2. Except for all the little pretty stuff, y'all can do that on your own. But that's Module 2, and I will see you back a little bit later with Module 3. And we're going to start off talking about these numbers. So just be prepared. So I will see you all in a bit.